Welcome to the Fix Your Gut podcast. My name is Jason Hooper, and as always, we're here with John Brisson.
Hope y'all are doing well today.
Today is our part 2 on diet, and we're going to alienate as many fans as possible by trashing your favorite diet. So
I
figured,
guess people aren't going to like us about that, huh? I guess we're going to make some enemies.
yeah, I predict that that this is probably going to go down much like our criticism of the flu vaccine, but we'll see. We'll see how much hate we get from this. So just the first forward is that all of the diets that we talk about today potentially are better than the standard American diet. So if you're on any kind of diet, you're in better shape than the average Joe that's eating, I don't know, like McDonald's every day and
microwave pork rinds and gallons of soda and energy drinks.
Hot Pockets and Red Bull.
Yeah.
So you're in better shape if you're following some kind of a diet. And basically, what does a diet do? It has foods that it recommends to eat, and it restricts other foods. And a lot of the foods that are being restricted are probably terrible stuff with things like trans fats and a lot of omega-6 oils. Yeah. Oh yeah, sugar, and just stuff that you just don't need. So the first diet, and I'm going to kind of go alphabetically here, just because that's the way my list is set up. The first diet that I want to talk about is the Alkaline Diet. And
oh yeah.
some of these diets are like loosely scientifically based, where they use some scientific terms like alkaline and basic, and they talk about pH. But the implementation of the diet and the claims that the diet makes are very unscientific. So, for instance, like if you eat, like the foods that you eat on the alkaline diet are not like the ones that are quote unquote alkaline, and the foods that are quote unquote acidic are not necessarily alkaline, nor are they acidic. If you did a pH test on the foods themselves, what they do is they pyrolyze the foods. Okay, so they basically convert it into ash, and they char everything out of it, and then they test the pH of the ash, and they claim that that's kind of what happens during digestion, because like everything gets destroyed, and then you're left with this ash, and the ash is what's left over and causes you to be more alkaline and more acidic system-wide. And they make all sorts of claims like the reason why we have cancer is because we're too acidic, and osteoporosis is because we're too acidic, and we actually like break down our bones into calcium carbonate because we're trying to alkalize our blood, and all this other junk that's just not true at all. It turns out that go ahead.
I was going to say the pH of our blood is usually kept within a very tight, narrow range. So to say that it's just crazy about. Now you can change the alkalinity and the acidity of your urine, and you can change the alkalinity and acidity of your digestive tract to some degree, depending on what microbes live down there. And there is an effect of. I thought also too. I thought the way the alkaline diet works, which I scientifically it's bunk, but in a way too, if you eat acidic foods like lemon or vinegar, and your stomach pH is a little bit higher than normal, then wouldn't it cause your pancreas to release a little bit more bicarbonate, which would alkaline your urine and alkaline your digestive tract a little bit more within the small intestine? But it wouldn't really have a broad effect on the blood, though, right?
Yeah, so the bicarbonate effect comes from breathing. When we breathe, that's sort of how we regulate our pH, because we exhale a lot of carboxylic acid in our breath, and that's kind of how we keep ourselves balanced. So if you hold your breath, you will become more acidic, and if you hyperventilate, you'll become more basic. And if you get out of like a range of like 0.02, you die. So it's good to breathe.
It's like 7.35 to 7.45 is the range, and anywhere above or below that is if you below that, it's metabolic acidosis, and if you're above that, it's metabolic alkalinosis.
Yeah, and then there like metabolic acidosis only there's like a very small range for that even, and then you're dead. So, but that is usually a result of your insulin condition and your pancreas again, and not really your kidneys actually do a better job of regulating the pH in your blood. Let's see here. So the alkaline diet. So some counterexamples. You were talking about the pH of your urine, the pH of your stool, and there are people that are on this diet that actually test. They pee in a cup and then they use a pH strip to test their urine to see how alkaline it is and whatever. And they sell these things, and it's a bunch of marketing nonsense. But like, if you let's say you take a little bit of vitamin C, let's say you take 200 milligrams of vitamin C, and you wait an hour and you pee, well, what's likely to happen with your urine?
It's going to be acidic
Yeah, you're not going to absorb all the vitamin
because the
C. Some of
pH
it,
of ascorbic acid is around 2, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, for the crystals, sure. So, you're you're gonna acidify your urine. Does that mean vitamin C is bad for you?
No, I mean it's the same if you would ingest lemon juice or cranberry juice. It's going to do the same thing. And actually, many people do that when they get a urinary tract infection, and hope that it makes the urinary tract less hospitable to certain bacteria like E. coli.
Yeah,
Even though it can irritate the tract in people with interstitial cystitis, they usually try to alkalinize their urine to prevent against inflammation.
yeah. Um, Yeah, that's kind of counterintuitive. But there's another example. I was looking at some research yesterday actually, and I'm looking into possibly designing a dietary supplement to help people with SIBO. And the study compared the pH of baby stools that were formula fed or breastfed, and guess which one's more acidic, breastfed babies or formula babies?
I would assume. Oh, that's a tough one. I want to say formula fed, but then again, I would breastfed.
Breastfed is more acidic,
Yeah.
significantly more so. And you know the reason why is because we have these human mammalian oligosaccharides in the breast milk, and that raises the pH of the stool. Um, like, are you saying, if you're believing in this alkaline diet stuff, are you saying that we should just make all babies drink formula because it's more alkaline, and that's good for you?
No, I mean I do recommend people with silent reflux to follow a more alkaline food diet, which is kind of like the opposite of the alkaline diet itself, where they avoid acidic foods like lemon and cranberries and stuff like that that can activate the pepsin in the throat. But yeah, I mean, there's really no basis to the alkaline diet in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's kind of takes, like, a lot of these diets, they'll take some good science and then they'll extend it way too far, and then they end up with
Yeah,
something
because the
crazy.
alkaline diet, you're eating like a lot of vegetables and a lot of fruits and a lot of low pH things too, like vinegar and lemon. And is it possible that that makes people feel better because their stomach pH drops and it helps fight any upper gut dysbiosis that they may have?
Um, yeah, I mean, the other thing, yeah, that's another thing to consider too, is as you're including foods and restricting foods on any diet, you have to kind of understand what that's doing to your microbiome. And the way some of these diets actually work is because of the effect that they have on the microbiome. But in any case, they I think the alkaline diet is pretty much witchcraft. So,
Still better than the standard American diet, though.
oh, for sure, because it discludes a lot of things, like processed meats, and
Soda.
and it encourages the consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables, which tend to be good for you.
And a lot of omega-3 fatty acids in fish, because fish tend to be more quote unquote alkaline on the diet, and lean
Yeah.
meats too. So, yes, and by all means, it is healthier than the standard American diet, just as far as the alkaline diet, like curing cancer and stuff like that. I would say that you're probably going to have a better shot probably doing a ketogenic diet. Um, But yes, I just wanted to make that known that there's a lot of health claims with it that are not based in a lot of fact.
Yeah, we'll get back to the ketogenic cancer claims and when we go over that diet. But for now, for the rest of our audience that didn't shut this off already, let's move on to the blood type diet.
Now, you did an extensive analysis on the blood type diet on fixyourgut.com, and I'll link that in the show notes. But yeah, Jason, go ahead. This is you did the research, and you're definitely knowledgeable on this. As much, I will say this, I do respect Peter Diamino though, and I do think that he does have a good database that I use called Substrata, where it's like the Wikipedia of people entering in different microbes that live in our gut and bacteria specifically, and what they colonize with and what they're weak again, and then what they feed off and what they produce. So that is good work by him.
Yeah, he has a lot of textbooks that are out, and I think like he's part doctor and part scientist. So
Yes.
he's playing the part of like the engineer and the part of the explorer at the same time. So he also has another catalog of lectins that are out there, and lectins are like these proteins that these glycoproteins that extend off of just various foodstuffs. And his claim is that they can interact with you differently depending upon your blood type and something called the secretor status. And the secretor status is actually really interesting to me because some people will secrete their antigens. So depending on your ABO blood group, you secrete slightly different antigens for each one. So if you get in an accident and you're given the wrong blood type, for instance, your body will start attacking. It has the wrong, it's the wrong blood type. So it has the wrong. So your antigens will basically start attacking the foreign blood. And you'll get something to the effect of graft versus host disease. But the secretor thing is interesting because you have like the people with the secretor status are secreting antigens in their saliva and in the lining of their epithelium is also like the mucosal membrane is also secreting antigens too.
And your microbiome reacts to that in different ways because your microbiome can feed off of those antigens.
Yeah, and for sure they do. And also, like it makes a big difference in your microbiome from birth if you were breastfed because your secretor status actually affects the types of oligosaccharides that the mother is producing in the breast milk. And so there are four oligosaccharides that are basically only used to feed probiotic bacteria. They have we can't digest them, and they're very biologically expensive to make. And so there are four of these. One of them is a fructose-based oligosaccharide, and the other three are lactose-based that are missing in people with non-secretor status or people without the A blood type. And I wouldn't say it's missing entirely. They find trace amounts in it, but it's not near as prevalent. Like for somebody with type A blood who has positive secretor status will produce 80% of 2FL as opposed to the lactose-based one. So I think that it is going to have an effect on the microbiome from birth to some extent if they're breastfeeding.
And our real quick, our microbiome also helps break those human milk oligosaccharides down as well, and we actually break down and absorb some of the lactose through the lactase enzyme that we produce.
Yeah.
So it feeds both our microbiome and it feeds us too as infants.
Yeah. So there could be some claim to this, and this gets pretty scientific, but it extends really far to where most people reading it are not going to have the background in biochemistry to understand the lectin interaction with certain blood group antigens. And so my problem that I had reading the books are that the books kind of like hyperlink to each other, and we're not getting a lot of outside data. And so, like, if he say, like, he'll make a statement and then he'll put a footnote in there to reference it, and it'll be a reference to like his own source. And so it's like, well, where do you get this material from? And then it'll link to another source that he also authored, and so it just kind of goes around and around. And there's nothing really outside to confirm what he's saying for some of the stuff. So there have been other people that have done some research to try to debunk the blood type diet, but they didn't actually do the diet right. Like they said, okay, well, if you're allowed to eat potatoes, you can eat potato chips. But clearly, if you've read the books, it says like you're not supposed to eat potato chips or fast food or any of that junk. Like you're supposed to eat a healthy diet, which is probably why it works for most people. But with as far as like the lectins versus antigen stuff in your blood groups, some of them I found to be incorrect. He gets a lot of them mixed up where it's like, oh, it's okay for this person to eat this, and then something with the exact same lectin in a different food, he says don't eat that, or something, or vice versa. Like you can't eat this, but you can eat that. Well, it's got this exact same lectin, so which one is it? I mean, can you eat that or not? So it's possible that there could be some merit to eating foods with certain lectins that mess you up. We know about certain people that appear to be intolerant to certain foods with certain lectins. Like, some people just have a lot of trouble with beans. Some people have a lot of trouble with seafood. And it could be a result of this. It could be a result of something. It might not be your blood group. It might be something else. It might be your microbiome. Who knows what it is? But there's something there. It just needs to be. I mean, we're years and years out from actually understanding what's going on, I think.
Yes, very much so.
So anyway, alkaline diet, some good. Not alkaline diet, blood type diet, some good research. Implementation, I think, it needs to be a lot better. I think we've kind of stopped, and I think that we just barely been scratching the surface of this. We need to go forward and figure out what's going on in a lot more detail.
Yes, very much so. We need to be studying more of secretor status, which they are studying more of that. And as well as is there a possibility that your blood type antigen has an effect on the foods that you can ingest? We at least know through that it does affect, if you are a secretor, it does affect your microbiome most of the time in a positive light.
Yeah. All right. The next sort of category of diets that I want to go over are these like single food diets where you can eat as much as you want of a single food. For instance, the cabbage soup diet, the grapefruit diet. Yeah, all that stuff, which basically works for weight loss purposes. They're kind of crash diets. And arguably, these are ketogenic diets because you're not really eating enough calories to drive up your blood sugar.
Well, the potato diet's a little bit different. You would, but a lot of people are using that to reset their eating habits and to possibly help with gut issues too as well.
Yeah,
I know that Richard Nicolai used to write a lot about the potato diet, the potato hack restart diet that they would talk about. But yeah, you would use a lot of that to you would just eat nothing but potatoes. You can eat them when you're hungry, and you just eat potatoes. You can put salt on them, and that's it. That's all you can do. No butter, no sour cream or anything, just potatoes. Which potatoes are very nutrient, especially if you're eating them with the skin.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got they've got a lot of potassium. They've got a lot of they've got a lot of starch. And if you eat nothing but potatoes, you probably will be fairly ketogenic because you have to eat tons and tons of potatoes to get calories. And we're not talking about like potato chips or French fries, but like baked potatoes. And so it's sort of a ketogenic diet in that you're not getting enough calories, and so you're going to be going into ketosis from time to time. You're going to be burning some of your body fat. I think that that restricting your food down to a single source is, unless you're doing some kind of an elimination diet, I don't think it's advisable. I think that it's actually kind of dangerous. I think that the long-term effects of it on your gut biome, on your immunosensitivity, I think it's going to be really harmful.
Might be one of
Um,
the few diets that we say the standard American diet is better.
yes, for sure. Because of that, because it's just dangerous. I mean, with the standard American diet, at least you're eating a variety of foods, and so your gut biome is going to be manipulated by several food sources. They might not be the best for you, but you're diversifying what's going on there. Now, if you're just eating potatoes, or you're just eating grapefruit, or you're just eating cabbage, or whatever, like carnivore diet is kind of like the single food diet in many regards. You're just eating steak. Well, you're going to be feeding a select, specific subspecies of bacteria that thrive on that, and they're going to be able to outcompete other things. And so it's really going to shift the microbiome in your gut. And for some people that are having autoimmune conditions and stuff, they're going to see some early on benefits because they're going to be killing off a lot of the bacteria. They could be killing off a lot of the bacteria that are causing them problems and giving them a lot of inflammation. But eventually, I mean, you're not going to eat grapefruit forever, right? You'll die. So you're going to switch back to something else. And when that happens, it's going to be rough because your microbiome isn't going to be suitable for it. You're going to have a lot of GI problems. It's like people that eat vegan for a long time or vegetarian for a long time. Then they start eating meat again. They're like, oh, this makes me sick. Well, of course it makes you sick. Like your GI isn't set up for it. So yeah, I don't know. Even like the Soylent diet, the Weight Watchers thing where you just drink shakes, those things, those diets are, I think, very, very unhealthy.
Yes, and they should all, if you're going to do like an all liquid diet or some sort of prolonged fasting or whatever, you should always do it while you're being monitored by a medical professional.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So that's enough of that. So let's see what else is next. The juice fasting diet. That's kind of the same. The juice fasting diet, like again, they had these claims. They were selling these like centripetal juicers. You remember those things, John, where you
And they
crank them
also
up?
have masticating juicers, which are better than centrifugal juicers and preserving more of the fiber, more of the nutrients of the juicers. But yes, there was a documentary called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead that came on Netflix. Was about a guy who did the juicing diet. He did lose a lot of weight. He did get in proper health, but then again, he did it under a medical professional's guidance. So
Yeah, it's it's yeah, the people that have just bought the um, those juicers, they come with an instruction booklet that has some recipes in there, and it's like, oh, if you have heart problems, you want to juice these foods and drink this, and if you want to. So I mean, I don't know how they get away from that, get away with that from an FDA point of view, but you're getting a lot of sugar potentially from doing this juice diet, and you're extracting a lot of the fiber potentially if you're not doing the mastication thing, but uh, the centrifugal one that spins around. So yeah, it's like a lot of people who have gone on this long term have had some pretty bad complications. They've had some insulin resistance. They've had a lot of dental issues, tooth decay, and that kind
it's
of
all the
stuff.
acid and all the sugar.
Yeah, I mean, and you just did a blog on teeth and gums, and I thought it was a great blog. And it's
Thank you,
that
Jason.
the gums are part of the GI too, and unhealthy gums are really bad for your health. So you want to make sure that you've got good healthy teeth and gums if you want to be healthy and live for a long time. That's super important. Um, and the juicing diet just wreaks havoc there. I think it's because of all the sugars and probably the proliferation of H. pylori probably goes up significantly with all the.
And acid too. I mean, you're just you know, especially if you're not neutralizing it by chewing gum or increasing saliva or anything like that. You're drinking really acidic beverages. If you're mixing a lot of fruit into it, because many fruits are have a low pH, like oranges or apples or pineapple and stuff like that, and you're drinking all those juices, it's going to erode your teeth enamel over time.
Well, even like kale and spinach, and they have like oxalic acid, and then like garlic. All the stuff that they tell you to juice is fairly acidic, and it can hurt your teeth enamel. So yeah,
And
brush your teeth.
we're not saying and you want to brush your teeth a couple hours later. You don't want to do it immediate. It's better actually for you to rinse your mouth out with bicarbonate of soda. It is to brush your teeth because we can rub off weaken the teeth enamel more by brushing your teeth as soon as you've ingested acidic foods.
Right.
But yeah, but it's still drinking a juice on occasion is fine. It's just when you're doing it for every meal, it could become a problem.
Yeah, you're also not getting any starch, and you're not getting any resistant starch, which will affect your microbiome for sure. Because I mean, what are the chances of sugars making it all the way to the small intestines are pretty low. Um, all right, the next diet I want to talk about is the ketogenic diet. The ketogenic diet basically is a fat-based diet where you eat a lot of fat and you try to use ketones as a food source. Ketones are the byproduct of fat oxidation, so you metabolize fats, and ketones are the byproduct, as opposed to using glucose as a food source, as a your primary fuel source. And a lot of people have used the ketogenic diet to lose weight. Some of them with inflammatory conditions do better on the ketogenic diet because it cuts out a lot of the vegetable materials that seem to cause them inflammation.
Seizure disorders.
Yeah, people with seizures tend to do a little bit better because of the way that it helps to stabilize the calcium ion channel in the nervous system. There's also a claim that it is good for certain type people with certain types of cancers. Um, there's some mixed research on that. It really depends on what kind of cancer that you have. Some cancers seem to be very glucose dependent, and if you cut out glucose, it kind of slows down its growth. And other diets that or other types of cancers that if you don't have enough glucose, then it actually grows faster. So you want to research what kind, if you have cancer, what kind of cancer you have, and if it's ketogenic diet is effective on that or not.
Because
It's
the other cancer cells feed off of glutamine. So if you're eating a ketogenic diet, you're feeding it like
right.
crazy.
Yeah, and so yeah, definitely. Now, I don't think anybody's suggesting that you just need to do this ketone diet and not get medical treatment for cancer, right? And I don't think I've ever heard anybody's like, oh yeah, you got cancer, just go on paleo and you're fine.
No,
What?
there's people that say that out in the spear.
Okay, well, I think that's
I
pretty
think
bad.
I think it's something that you should try to do to see if it helps, but it's not the only thing. That's ludicrous.
No, you should definitely be like going to an oncologist also, right?
Yeah, well, uh, it's debatable how I feel about chemotherapy, radiation, but okay. But yeah, I mean, you should at least be. There's other things that you should do, um, other than um, other than just being on a ketogenic diet. Um,
Well,
now I
even
wrote a,
yeah,
now I wrote a blog on ketogenic diets on Fix Your Gut, and I got a lot of flack because I talked about some of the issues associated with ketogenic diets. For example, people dealing with thyroid disorders or adrenal fatigue, ketogenic diets may make them feel worse.
yes,
As well as women because women have greater hormonal cascades with the need production of estrogen and progesterone that relies more on carbs, as well as women anatomically their thyroid glands are smaller, so they produce less thyroid hormones or are more prone to hypothyroidism. Remember back in the old days of the bulletproof forum, where women would go on before they made their own forum, would go within the bulletproof forum. They'd go on the forum and they would start doing ketogenic diets like the bulletproof diet without any type of refeed, and it was just destroying them, Jason.
yeah.
They stop having periods. They would have no energy. So yeah, you shouldn't be on a zero carb diet or a very low carb diet long term without it being medically necessary for like seizure disorders, or possibly extremely uncontrolled uh, diabetes or insulin resistance. Even though there are some studies that show like ketogenic diets can actually cause insulin resistance in some people who were not insulin resistant prior. We don't really know exactly what that mechanism could be. It could be a shifting of the gut microbiome, which lower carbohydrate diets do. So pretty much with anything, the ketogenic diet has helped a lot of people when done correctly. You do need to refeed. Dave Asprey originally on the Bulletproof Diet did not recommend refeeds, but he changed later once people were horribly becoming wrecked from it. As well as if you shift to a very strong ketogenic diet and do not support your gallbladder or your liver during the ingestion of fat being increased, it can lead to gallstones and gallstone blockages, as well as gallbladder removal surgery. So you definitely want to make sure that your stomach acid is good, that you ease into a ketogenic diet, and don't just start ingesting a whole bunch of fat with very little fiber, because that could lead to gallbladder problems that happened to personally someone I knew. Um, but you got
Yeah.
anything else to say about it?
Yeah. I mean, most of the people I think that are trying to eat a ketogenic diet are not actually ever getting to ketosis. And here's why. Um, Ketosis does not happen merely from carb restriction. Um, you have to be in a calorie deficient state, um, and you have to have some sort of physical activity. So, like if you're a desk jockey and you're drinking a bunch of uh, butter in your coffee and all this other stuff, you're probably getting plenty of calories, and you're probably not. You just douse yourself in MCT oil. You probably won't be raising your ketones significantly, and over time that gets less and less. So some people will test themselves by using these again these pee strips where they'll pee and they'll drop their thing in the urine to try to detect the only detectable ketones that are reliable is beta hydroxybutyrate in the blood using a blood test. They're expensive to do the blood tests, but those are the only accurate things. If you're just checking for acetone, um, there's a breath test too that checks for acetone. It's not necessarily an indication that you're in ketosis. And if you compare the levels of acetone to an actual reliable blood test, those won't add up. So a lot of people that think that they're on a ketogenic diet are actually not. They're just eating lots of fat and not eating a lot of carbohydrates. And if you check their blood levels, their ketones would probably be fairly low. Just probably the same as somebody eating a vegan diet or any other diet. So I don't know. So anyway, these high fat variant diets, you still have to. Um, I mean, you can't eat, despite the claims, you can't eat unlimited quantities of fat all the time, and be in ketosis. Like you just can't do it. So I don't know. It's interesting. I think the idea behind intermittent fasting is interesting. I think that's more likely to put you into ketosis. But the thing is, like, oh well, we're just looking at the mammalian target of racemycin. We're not actually or rapamycin. We're not actually. If as long as you don't eat protein, you're good to go. And so they supplement with a lot of fat in the morning. Well, that's actually, it might be true if you're looking to increase autophagy and the breaking down of proteins in your body. That might work, but as far as being in a ketogenic state, like you're still not really shifting over to where you're burning your own body fat. So it might be, if you're going to intermittent fast, it might be better just to like not do anything, not even do supplements, just drink water. Um,
So what about its effects of ketogenic diets on the microbiome? We've had a few studies that it decreases bifidobacterium and lactobacillus
oh yeah,
specifically if you don't get
oh
enough
for sure,
vegetable fiber in, and can
yeah,
increase bacteroids and clostridia and biophilia and also decreases rosaburia, which is important firmicute.
right,
So, of course, Dave Asprey also say, well, bacteroids, you're lean, and firmicutes, you're fat. Well, to tell people out there, I've seen thousands of GI effects tests and stool profile tests and everything. And majority of people I've ever coached, I'd say 99.5 5% of them all had high bacteroids and low firmicutes.
Yeah,
So
and
if you're eating a diet that feeds firmicutes like the standard American diet, yeah, it might make you fat. But believe it or not, a lot of those people, at least the company that I've coached, don't have or at least symptomatic SIBO and reflux, chronic reflux, or ironically enough. So there has to be some negative effect in the ketogenic diet long term without proper refeeds or proper fiber intake of vegetables and fruits that you can ingest, like blueberries and stuff like that. Like, if you're not doing it properly, it will mess up your gut, right, Jason?
yes, it absolutely will. Unless you're supplementing, there, if you take a little bit of GOS with it, galacto-oligosaccharides, it'll help with the bifibliobacteria, but uh, you know,
Or 2FL or a little bit of acacia fiber.
yeah, I'm actually looking into that. Like, what are the oligosaccharides that actually work and what aren't? And for people that are doing that, or people that are just looking to um, normalize their microbiome and maybe developing a product. There's a company in Denmark that I've started to work with that engineers, they're a biochemical lab that can produce a lot of these oligosaccharides, and they're very hard to make. And so I'm working with them to see if they'll help me create a formula that we can use to help people that are doing stuff like this. Maybe they need the autoimmune effects of a restricted diet, but we don't want to destroy their microbiome in the process. We want to keep them healthy, or just anybody who has SIBO or dysbiosis or anything like that. But getting back to this, yeah, you can supplement with a little GOS or 2FL, which is a nucleosaccharide found in breast milk, that you would normally be getting from plants. That won't affect you won't digest it as a sugar, but the bacteria will. It'll help to.
Eating a lot of vegetables too,
Yeah, yeah,
that are in season or local, organic, possible if you can find them, and eating a lot of herbs too as well, because the bacteria would like the polyphenols and collagen. Collagen feeds bifidobacteria.
yeah, for sure. The ketogenic diets that tend to do well are also integrate some sort of exercise program to keep you active. Like the Black Belt Nutrition program does well because it integrates a lot of body weight exercise, like pull-ups and push-ups and that kind of stuff to get you into shape. And that diet's used primarily by a lot of the European grappling teams, for like the wrestling teams and the judo jiu-jitsu teams that are in Europe. They use that to help to manage their weight. With people like that are that are competition athletes that are competing in combat sports, they also have to manage their weight on the scale, and a ketogenic diet will make you lighter on the scale because you won't retain as much water. So it'll make you it'll be easier to cut water weight that way. So a lot of competition athletes that are in combat sports will use the ketogenic diet and have a really a lot of success there. But I mean, like I'm saying, like if you're like, oh, I can eat dark chocolate, and you're just sitting at your desk all day, just pounding down bars of dark chocolate or whatever, like it's probably not going to work out for you too well. It takes quite a bit of tweaking around. It takes quite a bit of diet planning and stuff. It's you actually have to know what you're doing, and I recommend, if you're going to do it, to also monitor your glucose and your blood ketones, your beta hydroxybutyrate, BHB. Get one of those monitors. It's expensive, but I mean, hey, if you want to do it, you got to have some data to go with it, or else how do you know if you're actually in ketosis and you don't know what to tweak? So those are the low carbohydrate diets. They can be effective if you do them, if you're smart about it. But you got to take care of your gut. You got to make sure you're physically active. You got to make sure that you're not just eating chocolate bars all day.
You're getting sunlight. And one last thing too. What about the occasional ingestion of fermented foods? Do you think that would help out too as well, Jason? Sauerkraut, kimchi.
I mean, if you ate them every day, it might. But I mean, like if you're taking, like, let's say that you're on a ketogenic diet and you're not having any sort of resistant starch at all, and you're not doing refeeds, and you're not, within 3 days, you're a lot of your, basically all of your lactobacillus bacteria are going to be at extremely low levels. Supplementing with more, just like eating more of that, is not necessarily going to raise it because they have nothing to eat. So it's like trying to plant pine trees in the desert. They're just not going to grow, you
Yeah.
know. So you can try to use live cultures or probiotics. I think it's kind of a waste. I think you're just wasting your money, but I think it's better to use prebiotics, and I think that would be a lot healthier. But anyway, let's move on to the plant-based diets, kind of the opposite from the, I guess, ketogenic diet. You could do it plant-based. You could eat a lot of coconut oil. I wouldn't advise that, but let's move on to like the vegan type diets, like the Dr. Dean Ornish diet, or the forks over knives.
I was going to say forks over knives.
Well, yeah, Gregor was actually a student of Dean Ornish, and he got most of his material from Ornish. So let's just go into the history of Dean Ornish. Do you know about this guy?
Yes, I have heard about Dean Ornish.
This will go right into your. I think this is your cup of tea because it's kind of conspiratorial. So basically, he would claim that he could cure your heart disease with his eat more, weigh less diet, and basically put people on a vegan diet and try to cure their heart disease. Well, he would go in and he would do these heart scans on people, and he would show them that, like, oh yeah, everything's improving, you're doing great, and it turned out that he was like faking all of his studies, and he actually went to jail for insurance fraud because the insurance companies were like, "Oh yeah, you've been billing us for these bunk scans that you've been coming out with. They're not even real." And so he's currently on house arrest. There's no data to suggest that his diet is any better for heart health than any other diet. In fact, it's probably,
I'd probably say it's probably worse.
Well, it's probably better than the standard American diet.
Better than the standard American diet, yes, but worse compared to, like, where's the omega-3 fatty acids unless you're supplementing with algae, DHA, and EPA.
Right. And there's probably going to be a lot of leaky gut type stuff with a diet like that, and a lot of endotoxins. Endotoxins are pretty much, we've pretty much figured out that the cause of heart disease is endotoxin. So endotoxins bind to your, basically it binds to your your HDL packets. So when they go out, your liver sends out these HDL packets to repair tissues. The endotoxins are partially fat based, so it tries to incorporate within the protein packet, but it gets stuck, and then the packet gets stuck in your arteries, and that's kind of what causes cholesterol to deposit. It's not the cholesterol itself, it's the endotoxin that binds to the cholesterol. So it'd be better just to eliminate the endotoxin, but you need the cholesterol because we got to have a fat transport system. We got to have fat going to the liver, from the liver to the organs, and we got to have LDL cholesterol, which takes the packets to go back to the liver to be refilled. And so, yeah, we've seen lots of instances of people who have gone on a vegan diet and have had heart attacks and died because they just didn't have any cholesterol. They had like 0 HDL cholesterol, and they just had a heart attack and died. So that's not good. And another thing is that Dean Ornish, when Dr. Atkins was having trouble, he was having health problems or whatever, and he claims that he like slipped on the ice and hit his head, and so or I guess his wife claimed that. I don't know the full story, but like he was in the hospital, and Dean Ornish called the hospital claiming to be a relative of Dr. Atkins and got all of his medical records so that he could show to everybody how he was overweight and he was having arterial health problems and all this other stuff. And so the Atkins family tried to sue him but they should have sued the hospital for giving away the records, they because of confidentiality. So there was kind of like he was like these people are completely against the Atkins diets. They're kind of the vegans and the paleo people are somewhat at war with each other. Uh, so yeah, the
I
plant-based
mean,
diets.
I still think you plant-based diet, you still produce cholesterol. The liver's going to produce cholesterol. I think you're being a little bit facetious when he said someone's HDL is zero.
No, there that was an actual case. He was like I forget who it was, but it was like a TV news anchor who was vegan, and he did a lot of like marathon running and stuff like that, and just died of a heart attack. Like when they did his blood work, he had like not zero HDL, but pretty
It
close,
was,
like
yeah, it had to be
extremely
very low.
low.
I could see
Yeah.
that, but I will say that I mean, of course, Jack Cruz warns us in the ever increasing exposure to EMF radiation in our natural world that vegans are going to have such a tough time because with lack of DHA and EPA to protect themselves, as well as lacking of retinol, vitamin A ingestion because they're not ingesting liver or butter or cheese, or there's a lot of nutrients that are deficient to some degree in a vegan diet that most vegans would have to supplement. And because of that, the more that we're going to be exposed to non-native EMF, which I know Jason's probably rolling his eyes right now as I'm saying this, but I do think that it will be a problem. I do agree with Cruz there, Jason. I'm sorry, but I do think that it will become an issue.
Yeah. I'm just not sure. Like the same thing with Cruz and some of these other people is that they take um, they take some basic scientific principles and then they try to extrapolate them farther than they go. And when you talk about EMF, you read the blogs. There's absolutely no understanding at all of attenuation. Um, you know, it's just. I mean, he really loves to go like take the Planck constant and be like, and that's why, he just skips like 10 steps and he's like, and that's why this, and it's like, wait a second, like you didn't even attempt to connect the dots here. It's
I understand that, but you would agree with me that vegans are going to have, if they don't get certain nutrients in their diet and they don't get enough proper sunlight exposure for vitamin D production, even though they got quote unquote vegan, calorosopherol now from algae, but they're setting themselves up for a more tougher time. It's still better than the standard American diet in some respects, but I don't know, man. Like you said, the more strict you are, it can definitely cause a problem if you're not getting enough cholesterol, because cholesterol is beneficial, especially HDL cholesterol over LDL cholesterol.
it,
Um,
there's a distinction that we have to make too between dietary cholesterol and cholesterol that we produce. Okay, endogenous cholesterol. So exogenous cholesterol versus endogenous cholesterol. So the cholesterol in our foods are nutritionally irrelevant, basically. Like you don't have to worry about cholesterol in your food because you just break it down and just like everything else. But with the cholesterol that we take a look at is the endogenous cholesterol. What does our liver produce? If your liver is healthy, you tend to have healthier cholesterol levels. If your cholesterol is getting out of whack, a lot of times that's an indication that your liver is getting messed up. And so, that's one thing you need to look at, like what medications you're on. Are you a heavy drinker? What's going on with you? But anyway, yeah, the plant-based diets, again, I think way better than the standard American diet. I think that there's a lot of people that are doing but it's kind of like the ketogenic people. You got to be smart about it. You can't be a vegan and just like eat potato chips all day because that's not good for you. People that are actually eating plants, they're eating a lot of soy, they're eating a lot of stuff. Some people are going to do pretty well on that, and they can if they are smart about it, they can do it for a long period of time, especially if they're willing to supplement with algae-based omega-3s and vitamin B12 and all this other good stuff. So it's just when it gets too, it's like, it's like when Nietzsche wrote the Dissolution of Idols, when people start to replace religion with ideology, and they get into this thing where like their diet becomes their religion, which is why we're going to get so much hate from this thing, because we talk about bad about somebody and it's like we're insulting them, we're insulting their character about it, and they stop making rational nutrition choices because of their ideological possession. So I think that, yeah, I mean, you just got to be smart with any diet you're on. I think that if you did a plant-based diet for a long time, you could definitely make it sustainable and be very healthy. You just have to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, the Ornish Diet, I remember, didn't Bill Clinton follow it after his heart attack? And I think with Dean Ornish's diet, it's not a true vegan diet. You can eat a little bit of dairy, if I remember, and he advocates fish oil supplements too.
Hmm.
But there's different degrees of vegetarianism and veganism.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And I think that you probably should, like, if you look at your plate, you should definitely have a lot more vegetables on your plate than meat, right? You would agree with that?
Of course.
And probably like at least 3/4 vegetables, 1/4 meat.
And probably some sort of carb and some sort of fat subsource. But yes, I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, you're going to get that from your vegetable, the carbs from their vegetables, and probably your fats from your meats. So it should play out in that way. All right, let's go on food combining diets, where you can eat food in certain combinations and be healthy, but in other combinations they're not healthy, like the Suzanne Summers summarizing diet. Um, there are also claims that have been made that like you should never eat fruit and meat at the same time because fruit digests very quickly and meat takes a long time to digest. So if you eat them at the same time, then it's going to mess up your gut because uh, they're different digesting timed foods, and there's no way we could eat that and live, right?
Food timing. Food
Yeah.
timing.
So yeah, it's nonsense.
Some people swear by it though, Jason.
Well, yeah. Some people swear by fuel additives too. But anyway, the yeah, it's just kind of ridiculous to me. Like our guts are designed to digest pretty much everything we throw at it. Um, if you eat,
Now there is a possibility if you had some sort of genetic issue of lactose or fructose or some sort of microbiome shift where you have problems digesting foods or become reactive to foods. Now there's a possibility that if you add a whole bunch of a certain food at one meal at one time, you might not be able to tolerate it because of that, Jason. That's possible.
yeah, but that has nothing to do with the timing. It's just you're eating a bunch of fructose or whatever that you can't digest well, or lactose that you can't
Or
digest well.
oxalates or whatever,
Yeah,
salicylates, histamine, whatever.
yeah. So food combining diet is pretty much nonsense. Um, Liquid diets, we already talked about that a little bit, like the Cambridge diet, Slim Fast, all that stuff, Soylent. Um, they're actually pretty dangerous. You should only do it under medical supervision. Um, you know, do it at your own risk. Um, yeah, so it seems like we don't like any diet so far. Um, we're being pretty negative. I know you're into the perfect health diet.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Paul Jabaday's work. I do follow a modified perfect health diet for myself, where and people have talked about this on the Perfect Health Diet Facebook group about how they eat more carbohydrates in the summer and eat less in the winter. And I do eat corn, but yes, overall, I do think the Perfect Health Diet for many people would work well. I know you don't think it has enough carbohydrates. I agree. As someone who is very athletic, they'd have to increase the carbohydrate range. But as far as avoiding certain foods and implicating, avoiding gluten and a lot of sugar and a lot of hydrogenated oils and alcohols and stuff like that, I think it is one of the healthier diets. And I do like Paul Jaminet's work a lot.
Yeah, yeah. He does a pretty good job. Uh, yeah, it's if you're exercising a lot, you are going to need to tweak that diet somehow. You could take
You could
some,
just eat more
actually.
carbohydrates. That's it. You
I've,
could just eat. You could eat
I've
more
got
of
this
this.
stuff here, man. I wish we could get them to be an affiliate. Um, I need to contact these people that make. Uh, there's this supplement that's like exogenous ketones, and most of the exogenous ketones in the market are junk. But you can, if you're on kind of like a ketogenic diet, you can take that pre-workout. And if you take MCT oil pre-workout, you're a fool. But like you can take this stuff pre-workout. I've used it before when I've been doing carbohydrate restriction for things like, if I need to cut water weight for something. I've done that before. But yeah, just like, especially if you're in a bulking season, or if, you're trying to gain a lot of strength or whatever, you might need more carbohydrate. It's just designed for the average person, not for people that are, I think, physically fit. For that, if you want to go low carb, you should check out Black Belt Nutrition. If you want to go higher carb, then you should check out Eat to Perform. Pretty much what I do is I just, I keep a garden, and I have chickens and ducks and stuff, and I just, eat out the garden, and I eat, eggs, and sometimes we call the ducks and eat that. And, and when I supplement from the grocery store, I try to get the same stuff that's grown in the garden, that's in season, that's locally grown. And that tends to keep my diet varied, because not everything's in season all the time. It tends to follow kind of the circadian rhythm that you're talking about with the Perfect Health diet, because a lot of these starchy foods just, they don't produce as well over the winter, and you get a lot more, fruits and berries and stuff over the summer. So, and then hunting season is also in the late fall and late fall. So you're getting your more meat coming in that way during the winter months. So I don't know. That's kind of how I tend to do things. And what,
That's how I tend to do things too as well. I mean, I break from that from time to time if I want something, but I generally follow the same rule that you do, Jason.
yeah, I mean, I used to be just really strict about diet, like even around the holidays, like I just wouldn't eat stuff that people would offer me, and it'd be like, nah, that's terrible for you, no thanks, or whatever. And I've gotten a lot more relaxed on that. Somebody says, hey, here's some pumpkin pie, I won't be like, well, that's actually poison, but thanks for offering. Like I'll eat a slice of pumpkin pie, whatever. So no big deal. I don't know, I guess people have always said, like, well, why don't you create your own diet from Fix Your Gut? And it's not that easy. Like, it's not,
Yeah,
like
I've never.
creating it.
Yeah, I mean, I've never said that I would, because diet is individual.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can give out to the masses and everybody follows it with. That's like I like the Perfect Health diet. I hate the name for it. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like you got to learn about yourself, and it takes a long time. It takes a lot of rotations around the sun before you start to figure out what foods you can eat, what you need to avoid, all this other good stuff, what makes you gain weight. It's just, there's a lot of people that, and some of these diets are good blueprints, but you gotta have to tweak them for you. You have to supplement. You got to figure out what your gut's doing and what your overall health is. You got to do at least a little bit of observation and tracking, I think, to optimize for yourself. But if you're paying attention, you should be able to figure out something that works for you. A lot of these diets, though, you go on them and they don't work forever. They work for a little while, and they kind of start to lose their steam. And you might want to switch between different diets to keep things varied. You might want to try to start a garden, and you're like, oh, well, I live in an apartment. Well, in some urban areas, they have community gardens where you can go out and you can, you can have like a little spot in the garden and plant stuff and do it there, so maybe I'll take some of my new, Carolina Reaper seeds that I just bought from, these are really spicy pepper seeds that I just bought, and go out into a community garden, just start planting those everywhere. What do you think about that? Is that socially responsible?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you're greening up the environment, aren't you?
Well, it's definitely going to keep the bugs away for people who want to do organic farming, because I can't see a bug being able to tolerate a Carolina Reaper pepper.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, pretty much, I guess your diet would be the same as mine. Is that, we probably have differences, but I guess a good template to follow for most people is like I said, eat more carbs in the summer, eat less carbs in the winter. Try to eat natural, wild caught omega-3 fatty acid sources of seafood, low mercury, uh, once or twice or even 3 times a week. You know, and eat meat and grass-fed meat if all possible, and grass-fed butter and extra virgin olive oil, and if you eat on occasion, if you want to eat out with your family, as long as you don't have any issues. Like for me, I have celiac disease, so I can't eat gluten. Of course, it makes me very ill. But if it's a holiday and you want to eat with your family, do it. That's what we're supposed to enjoy. Food, people too. It's a part of life.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I'm not saying to
Nutrition,
guzzle
yeah,
gallons of soda every day.
yeah.
I'm not giving you carb or eating a pound of dark chocolate daily, but you know,
Yeah.
it is a holiday. Enjoy yourself.
Nutrition is a science, food is an art. Enjoy your food, everybody. And we'll see you next time.